We want you out of America, but if you're really good, we're going to try and help you get back in.
Seriously. But seriously, folks, can President Trump be any clearer than he is in this video explaining to illegal aliens their two options and the consequences of each one?
Today, I signed an executive order to launch the first ever self-deportation program for illegal aliens. We are making it as easy as possible for illegal aliens to leave America. Any illegal alien can simply show up at an airport and receive a free flight out of our country. We have also launched a phone app called CBP Home. That's CBP Home, where illegals can book a free flight to any foreign country. As long as it's not here, you can go anywhere you want. We're also adding a very important exit bonus for illegals to further incentivize their self-deportation. This deportation bonus will save American taxpayers billions and billions of dollars. What Biden did to this country can never be explained, will never, ever be accepted. Eventually, when the illegals are gone, it will save us trillions of dollars. However, if illegal aliens choose to remain in America, they're remaining illegally and they will face severe consequences. Illegal aliens who stay in America face punishments including significant jail time, enormous financial penalties, confiscation of all property, garnishment of all wages, imprisonment and incarceration, and sudden deportation in a place and manner solely of our discretion. So to all illegal aliens, book your free flight right now. We want you out of America, but if you're really good, we're going to try and help you get back in. Thank you.
Yeah, pretty clear there, isn't it, folks? Deport yourself, and we'll pay for you to go to any country. Just leave America. And if you're good, you get a chance to come back. If not, the full weight of the government is going to find you, arrest you, kick you out. They'll have penalties. Things will be tough. If you try to stay, they'll even garnish your wages and take your money. Going to make it pretty tough to stick around here. So you might as well just go home or somewhere else. Wow. And reports of 20,000 more people will be out there looking for these illegal aliens. President Trump not messing around. Welcome to the show. I am James, the original BCP. Happy Mother's Day to all of our mothers. If you watched my second report I did on Saturday, you'll notice that I led off with the great news of that peace deal between India and Pakistan. By the time it went up, members got to see that video first. Members will get to see this video first as well. But then, once it was published on YouTube, sometimes that happens with breaking news, folks. It was the news of the day. It was the news of the morning when I recorded it. And then by the time the news report came out, it turns out that the ceasefire, well, they didn't exactly cease the firing. So I can't control the news, folks. And sometimes, like weather in many places, it will switch, it will change, it will flip on a dime. When we're talking about flipping on a dime, remember the left and all of their pundits and operatives in the mainstream media, other Democrats, telling us how Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. was the best president and he was so great and it was so better having him than Trump. And then they did a switcheroo to get him out. Kamala Harris loses in spectacular fashion and we get President Trump back again in 2024. They loved Joe Biden, but boy, now that he's out and President Trump is in, boy, have they flipped. And the Democrats are pissed that Biden has returned to the spotlight. Democrats are blasting former President Biden's reemergence in the spotlight following his interview Thursday on The View, his second major post-presidency interview. During the sit-down, which took place alongside former, well, she might be firm, but I wouldn't know that, former First Lady Jill Biden slammed President Trump's second administration. And we don't care what he had to say because he was a terrible president. But some Democrats are criticizing Biden's recent appearances, arguing the former president is becoming a drag on the party as it seeks to rebuild following its widespread losses in 2024. Now look, what's funny to me about this is that Joe Biden is doing exactly what the Democrats are still doing right now. All they're doing is opposing Trump. They have no policy positions. They have nothing original. They're not even really standing on their own agenda. Their agenda is everything that Trump likes, we oppose. Even things that don't make any damn sense, like, oh, I don't know, getting rid of murderers and rapists and criminal aliens and gang members. No, we hate Trump so much that that's our entire agenda. We're going to go out there and advocate for Maryland dads, MS-13 leaders and human smugglers. And boy, are they upset that Joe Biden is out there reminding everyone how terrible the Democrat Party is. Elections are about the future. Every time Joe Biden emerges, we fight an old war, said Democratic strategist Anthony Coley, who worked for the Biden administration. Yep. Every interview he does provides a contrast to Trump that's just not helpful for the Democratic brand, which needs trusted messengers and fighters who can reach independents and moderates and inspire the base. Joe Biden ain't that. They're not going to get rid of Joe Biden. The guy's broke. He's got to try to find another gig. I mean, the guy was a total grifter. And so funny, all of a sudden Hunter Biden's art is not that good. It's not selling very well, it seems. Isn't that interesting? The grandkids are all used to this lavish lifestyle. But the spigot, as Sean Spicer says, has been turned off. So Joe Biden's got to go out there. He's got to figure out. I mean, everyone is dependent on the aging patriarch for their money. He's got to do something to bring in the funds to support their lifestyle. But Democrats want him to be like Carter and just focus on community outreach. But guess what? Community outreach doesn't pay the bills. Now, you know what does pay the bills sometimes is writing an expose tell-all about what we all know, that Joe Biden was not able to do his job and had cognitive issues. And that's what Scott Jennings was talking about on CNN about the Jake Tapper, Alex Stump book coming out on May 20th and how it is going to be a nuclear bomb for the Democrat Party.
Watching some of the interviews he did over.
Thank you for your viewership.
Yeah, I saw it. It's rare for me, but I did watch it.
You like Anna. That's what it is.
I will just say, watching him over the last few days reminded me that a whole bunch of people were telling us with a straight face that this man was capable of serving another 4 years as president. And that these appearances, coupled with what I understand is going to be the equivalent of a nuclear bomb dropped on the Democratic Party when Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson's book come out next week, I don't know that the Democrats have fully internalized what's about to happen to them. Between what he looks like today and what they're about to report, get ready.
I am not sure that.
Get ready. No, you don't need to get ready. I don't need to get ready. We don't need to get ready because we've known. We know exactly what was done to get Joe Biden into the Oval Office. We know what they did to keep him as the puppet in the Oval Office. And we know that the lights were on and no one's been home for a long time. But I'm curious to see how the Democrats react to what we already know. But believe it or not, folks, some people on the left live in such a bubble that unless they hear it from the Jake Tappers and the people within this sphere, it never even enters their space. They don't look at alternative media. They don't watch not even Fox News or Newsmax. They only go to their sources that keep them in their echo chamber, their safe space of news. So it'll be interesting to see how that is received. Democrat operatives telling other Democrats about the Democrats were really up to behind the curtain in hiding Joe Biden's cognitive issues. Now, someone who's outspoken and doesn't sugarcoat anything when it comes to her own party is M to the T to the G, also known as Marjorie Greene, who is shocking many people with her blistering statement on the GOP elites and what they're doing in the Georgia Senate race. It's actually pretty lengthy, what she had to say, but let me give you some of the bullet points. If you want to read the whole thing, she put it up on X, my thoughts on the 2026 Senate race. But she's just not talking about the Senate race, and in particular, the Senate race there in Georgia. But boy, she did more than that. Let's start off what she had to say about the Georgia Senate race next year, in which they're trying to get rid of Democrat Jon Ossoff. And she talked about how the ultra-rich Kemp donors, you know, the rhinos supporting Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia, they gathered last weekend at their elite retreat on luxurious Sea Island to anoint their preferred candidate to run against Jon Ossoff. And she laughed out loud. Sea Island is not far from Jekyll Island, where another elite retreat formed the Federal Reserve, and look how that turned out. We all know how these elite retreats work. Many of the attendees hate Trump, back DeSantis, look down on MAGA, and refuse to fight in 2020. We all saw that in November and December of 2020. That is when I exited the Republican Party. I never really considered myself a full-on Republican because, you know, they have been rhinos and haven't been representing conservative values for a very long time. But because I was living mostly in California, where they used to have closed primaries, and I knew that who I wanted to run in politics was never going to come to the Democrat Party, I registered as a Republican, so I could at least in the primaries choose the more conservative of the usual milquetoast variety. But after what they did and didn't do from November 2020 to January 20th, 2021, I said enough is enough. And I left the Republican Party. I currently am an independent, though obviously I vote conservative, and 99.9% of the time, the people I'm going to vote for are going to be a Republican. But man, she's got a lot more to say. Now, they're trying to carefully select someone who can dress up in MAGA just enough to trick the grassroots into thinking they're one of us, someone who won't dare challenge the Republican establishment or disrupt the status quo that has failed the people time and time again. These are the Republicans who see Trump as a speed bump, one they believe they can carefully roll over now that he won't be on the ballot again. These are the same elites who scoffed at MTG as saying her when she ran for Congress in 2020, but she beat 8 well-funded male opponents in the primary and crushed the establishment's hand-picked neurosurgeon in the runoff. She's saying that the people of Georgia are not going to fall for whoever the Republican establishment puts to run against Jon Ossoff. And I'll be blunt, the elites don't speak for the people of Georgia who would walk through fire for President Trump. The political consultants embedded in the White House don't know Georgia like I do. Our people are not stupid, and they've learned a powerful lesson over the last few years. And folks, substitute Georgia for your state, for your community, for you, for your family. We know that the Republicans think that we just vote R and can't differentiate between rhinos and President Trump, MAGA, and America First. And boy, they live in a bubble as well. And boy, do they have another thing coming. Most elected Republicans, propped up by consultants and rich donors, fail to deliver on their campaign promises. Why? Because their donors and handlers don't want change. They want to protect their own interests, not yours. And folks, let's not forget that there was a magical moment during President Trump, or then candidate Trump, in 2016, when he was there on that debate and he got booed. Do you remember what he said? He said essentially what Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying here.
Mr. Trump, take 30 seconds.
Let me just, he wants to be a tough guy. A lot of times you'll have, and it doesn't work very well with
How tough is it to take property from an elderly woman?
Let me talk. Quiet.
How tough is it?
A lot of times.
Folks, I didn't plan on doing a flashback, but one of the greatest moments in political debate history, President Trump getting booed and then flipping the script. And now we can look 9 years later and see that President Trump was 110% right on everything he's about to say, or he said back in 2016.
That's all of his donors and special interests out there. To the television audience, we have all donors in the audience, and the reason they're not loving me, the reason they're not Excuse me. The reason they're not loving me is I don't want their money. I'm going to do the right thing for the American public. I don't want their money. I don't need their money. And I'm the only one up here that can say that.
President Trump was the only one who could say that, is the only one who could say that. And we have seen him prove that he is working for we, the American people, with America First and MAGA. And MAGA is so popular and so powerful that the elites in the GOP are trying to put forward a MAGA fraudster, not just in Georgia, but in every single open seat they can, or every single seat open for a contest with a Democrat that they can. MTG goes on to say, now they're trying to carefully select someone who can dress up in MAGA just enough to trick the grassroots into thinking they're one of us, someone who won't dare challenge the Republican establishment or disrupt the status quo that has failed the people time and time again. Okay, so we know that's how the establishment works in the GOP. But let's talk about work. Does the Senate even work? Do Senate Republicans even work? Does the Senate as a whole even work for the American people? She's got some great insight here. Once again, she is confirming what you and I know to be true. But when it comes from someone who's on our side and a DC insider, it has a lot more gravitas. Here's the hard truth. Marjorie Greene continues. The Senate doesn't work. It's designed to obstruct the will of the people and protect the uniparty's grip on power. Nearly everything requires 60 votes to pass, and even when we have a majority, a pack of Republican senators always votes no on the bills that matter most. You know who they are. You've watched them sabotage Trump's agenda for years. They don't fear you, and they don't serve you. They're protected by the same corrupt system of donors and consultants who manipulate you with fear. And yes, we know exactly who these people are. We can name them: Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and of course Mitch McConnell. And then they'll sprinkle in some other people here and there depending on the bill. But we can always count on at least enough rhinos to take us below the threshold. And a few times we have had a tiebreaker during the first term. A couple times Mike Pence jumped in with the tiebreaker, J.D. Vance. But they usually get enough rhinos to torpedo anything that is of substance. And those same Republican senators fast-tracked Biden's radical nominees, including Garland, Mayorkas, and even Rachel Levine, while quietly working to block Trump's MAGA picks. There are exceptions to the 60-vote rule, like reconciliation and rescission, but we haven't seen those used to help us either, and when they are, it's not what you think. Take a look at Senate leadership. The same Republicans who greenlit Biden's worst nominees now chair the committees that control legislation. Mitch McConnell isn't Senate leader anymore, but he chairs a powerful Rules Committee and still controls what makes it to the floor. Susan Collins chairs Appropriations. Think about that. Even with a few good Republicans in the Senate, nothing changes. Someone once said the Senate is where good ideas go to die. They were right. And she pretty much breaks it down. And then she addresses, is she really going to be running for Senate in the state of Georgia? It seems pretty obvious, but here she concludes with this. So, John Ossoff, you can stop with the fundraising emails and campaign ads claiming I'm your opponent. I'm not running. Start trying to raise money off one of these other generic Republicans, though I expect your donations will drop. Good luck. So, pulling back the curtain, and thank you, Marjorie Taylor Greene, for confirming what we know and putting it on Twitter so eloquently. Look, folks, DC is a swamp, and everything in the government is pretty much a mafia. And now this, a Trump, P-Diddy, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell connection. Jim Comey's daughter, prosecutor in the Jeffrey and Ghislaine cases, now is somehow the prosecutor on the P-Diddy case. Or in other words, she is brought in to protect the guilty. After being on Southern District of New York's prosecution team against Jeffrey and his accomplice Ghislaine, Jim Comey's daughter is now on the DOJ's team against P. Diddy. You can't make this stuff up. The deep state is alive in New York. Where is Bondi? Before President Trump stepped into the White House, there was an attempted coup d'etat to have him removed from office. This began with claims that candidate and then President Trump was a Russian puppet using false stories fed to the corrupt U.S. media. Jim Comey was a big part of the effort to remove President Trump from office. He could not be trusted and was fired by President Trump. Despite his questionable actions, Comey walks free today, making six-figure speaking fees while sharing his hatred for President Trump. As many Americans know, Comey's daughter is a chip off of the father's back. She works for the DOJ in New York. Wait a minute. Chip off the old back. I don't know that idiom. Is that the proper idiomatic expression? I know it as chip off the old block. Maybe this is a transcription error. I don't know. Maybe I learned something new today. Is it really chip off the back? Never heard of that before. Anywho, Maureen Comey, an assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, is one of the lead prosecutors in the criminal case against Maxwell and has been picked to hold a similar role in the case of the late convicted offender Jeffrey prior to his death in August of 2019. Assistant U.S. Attorney Comey heads the SDNY's Violent and Organized Crime Unit. Well, obviously, she's part of an organized crime unit herself, and has been with the office for 10 years, according to her profile on LinkedIn. And now it's being reported that fired former FBI head Jim Comey's daughter is part of the prosecutorial team in the P-Diddy case. Quote, Maureen Ryan Comey, a lead prosecutor in the trafficking case against Jeffrey and his accomplice, Miss Maxwell, has joined the prosecutor's team in the ongoing case against Sean Diddy Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, whatever you want to call him. And anyhow, now that she's on the team, the whole thing is all of a sudden falling apart. Isn't that interesting? Benny Johnson tweeting out the other day, breaking key Diddy witness mysteriously goes missing right before trial starts. She was set to deliver very personal and explosive details about the abuse she experienced at the hands of Diddy. And we see this Diddy trial thrown into chaos as key witness goes, can we do air quotes? Missing. Everything's a scam, folks. Everything's a scam. And going back to Joe Hoft, who wrote this, where is Bondi? Why is this being allowed? It is the same usual suspects doing their suspicious things because certain people are connected and they will be protected at all costs. Look at these two fruits together. Two peas in a pod. Read into that what you want. But let's just say I wouldn't bend over to pick up a gold bar anywhere in the vicinity of these two. I was going to end there, but now let's end with a swamp draining story. It's Mother's Day, and I don't want to leave on a negative note. So here's a small win. We'll take all the wins that we can get. A federal judge green lights the CIA firing of Biden-era doctor who pushed the mandatory jab on military personnel. Another deep state bureaucrat is shown the door. At this time, it's the architect of the Pentagon's infamous jab genocide mandate. A federal judge has ruled that the CIA may proceed with the termination of Dr. Terry Aderim, a senior health official who spearheaded the Biden administration's unconstitutional mandate on U.S. military personnel. Dr. Aderim is a longtime Democrat loyalist and radical health bureaucrat, and she's perhaps best known for her controversial 2021 memo that forced service members to either submit to an experimental shot or be dishonorably discharged, many without benefits and with their career in ruins. Appointed by Joe Biden to serve as the acting Secretary of Defense for Health Affairs, she authorized the coercive use of the emergency use authorization injection, falsely labeling it as interchangeable with the fully FDA-approved shot, which was largely unavailable to troops. We know the results. Tens of thousands of servicemen and women were punished, discharged, or sidelined, all for refusing a gene therapy product that they were never legally obligated to take. Now, she fled the Department of Defense and quietly took a position at the CIA in December as director of its Center for Global Health Services, but she didn't last there long. President Trump found out and he took swift action to have her fired last month. She sued to get her job back, saying that her firing was politically motivated and influenced by far-right activists. But the CIA insists her dismissal had nothing to do with external pressure and everything to do with internal complaints about her conduct, complaints reportedly filed by CIA officers themselves. And U.S. District Judge Michael Nachmanoff, a Biden appointee, rejected Adarum's attempt to block the CIA's decision. And during a hearing right before the weekend, Nachmanoff lifted a temporary hold and allowed the agency to proceed with her removal. He refused to issue a restraining order, finding no merit in the claim that Adarum was being defamed or punished without due process. Okay, now we're done. Just wanted to end on a positive note. Once again, besos y abrazos, hugs and kisses to all my mothers and grandmothers out there. Happy Mother's Day. Enjoy the day with your family. I will be back tomorrow. Make sure you hit the like button if you haven't already and hit that notification bell.